Welcome to the Amplifying Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Tara Lehman, a partner, coach, and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services, of which Amplifying Leadership is a division. This podcast is a place dedicated to amplifying your leadership through our guest stories, tips, information, and more. To learn more about our leadership division, please visit us at amplifyingleadership.ca. Today, I am welcoming Janice Brathwaite, founder and CEO of Workplace Transformations. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here.
And I love that we're going to talk about organizational culture today. But before we get into that topic, tell us a little bit more about you or your leadership.
Well, I worked in healthcare for about 17 years. I was a director of workforce programs for an organization. And I worked with 52 community health centers in Massachusetts. And that included a lot of different things like training and developing staff and so forth. So I decided in December of 23, I had this idea of this company that I was trying to get up and running. But it's really hard when you're working and trying to do something else at the same time.
Yes, I've been there. It is hard, long hours.
Yes, one of them suffers usually. Yeah. I don't believe in multitasking, so I should take my own advice in that case. So I left my organization and I had the framework for the company. And I said to myself, there's a saying in England, in for a penny, in for a pound. Mm-hmm. And that means you either give it all or you just don't give, you don't give anything. So I said, well, this is the time. I need to really, if I really want this, I'm going to have to really work at it and get it up and running. Yeah. That's what happened.
Excellent. And it's tough, isn't it, when you start to go from corporate to your own business? Because I did the same thing. It's a tough one, but it's a lot more fun. So at least in my experience.
Yes, it is. It has its days, but it's overall, I'd say it's a pretty nice.
It's rewarding for sure.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about organizational culture. So how do you define that? So our audience knows a little bit more about how you see it.
Sure. I'm a very visual person, so I tried to visualize what is the structure of organizational culture. And I came to the understanding or belief that it's the foundation of your organization. And I often talk about how the things that you've accumulated over time, as far as what's built into your culture, are like bricks. And they're holding that foundation, that organization up, that foundation. But sometimes there are cracks in the bricks. And sometimes people don't notice there are cracks in the bricks. So they don't do anything about it. The cracks in the bricks is really your organizational culture things that are holding you back. And it could really bring you down, actually. Like, a building is on a foundation. And if the foundation's weak, the building's going to be weak. So it's the same thing with an organization or a company. So that's how I define it, as the foundations. Everything has been built into your organization over time, over a period of time, and that builds the foundation for that organization.
It's interesting. A lot of organizations use the whole building or the foundation of a home or a building or something as the culture, and you build up from that. But I love that you recognize that, yes, there can be cracks. Yes. It happens, right? Yep. And so I'm curious, what do you see as, the top cracks? What are those themes or topics that you do see out there?
Always when I do an assessment, I do a deep assessment with everybody that I work with. And it is communication, always comes out as a top pain point. And then recognition usually comes out second. And third, probably engagement, the level of engagement that the person has with the organization. So those are usually the top ones. Usually people think it's money. And I when I was doing some training, I told the people who were in the training, I said, money is important. I will never deny that. But it's a short-term satisfier. If I give you $100 raise, within 2 months, it's going to seem like it's nothing because it becomes part of what you have. And I said, firmly believe that everybody should have a living wage, for no doubt
Hmm.
about that. But I think that that's what happens is, people think, oh, it's all if we throw more money at them, they'll be better, they'll like us better. Not necessarily.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, based on my clients and even my own experience, that money isn't necessarily what keeps people at their organizations.
Yeah,
It's what is that culture? Do they feel valued, heard, welcome,
right.
lack of fear, collaboration, all those types of things. I would agree with you. And your top three, communication, recognition, and engagement, come up a lot for
Mhm.
my clients as well. And I really do feel that you've hit them on the nose there with these are the common cracks, communication being probably number one, my favorite topic.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Go ahead.
Communication is difficult, no
Hmm.
doubt about it, and keeping everybody informed, but you have to use every possible way to do that. And that's what I
Agreed.
tell people is that, it's not just voice to voice, it's not just somebody talking. It could be a newsletter, it could be many, many different things. Um,
Absolutely.
but people want to know what's going on. And I always say if they don't know what's going on, they'll make it up.
That's when gossip starts, right?
They'll make it up.
Absolutely. They'll make it up. Why do you think that some leaders have a really difficult time with this, with the communication or even engaging with their own staff? Why do you think that happens?
I think you have to be intentional. It has to be intentional.
Hmm.
You have to realize that at some point that ask yourself as a leader, what's going on here? You know,
Right.
what what should I do better? And I think also coaching helps, like leadership coaching, to kind of get the person to think in a different way.
Hmm.
That that if they, I call it, well, it's an old name, but I used to call it management by walking around.
Yes, that's a lean principle too, isn't it? Yes,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I think that's what's missing. Leaders get so caught up in their office that they become like the Wizard of Oz, behind the screen.
There, but you never see, right?
You can
Love
hear the
that.
voice every once in a while, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And they need to start thinking about, well, maybe I need to get out and actually talk to my staff.
Yeah.
And I used to do it, and I tell you, I learned so much, many things about what was going on in an organization by simply going up to somebody and having a conversation with them. And
Hmm.
in the beginning, they're kind of skeptical because you're the leader, and what are you trying to trick me?
Yeah.
And but if you approach it the right way, then they slowly start to calm down and say, no, this isn't about something I'm doing wrong. It's just to learn more about me. But
Yeah.
people really, really liked it, and I tell you, I learned. I was in banking for a long time in a very secure area in a banking overall, and I would go around and speak to people talk to them, just,
Hmm.
oh, how's your family, and I found out one person was on drugs, and I would have never known. I would have never known.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
because felt she had that kind of connection, she could tell me, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so that opened up the possibility for, help, to her to get help and so forth.
Hmm.
So you learn a lot more about people. Like some people say, like that's what networking is. Like you go out and you talk to different people and you learn different things
Hmm.
about whatever, an organization or whatever. Maybe leaders need to network better with their staff.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to do the same thing as you, very open door, very like walk around was one of just what our culture was built on. And I think it's really important that they do those walk arounds. And so let's talk a little bit about like they've never done this before. People fear them. So what are some of those first things that they could go? They're suddenly walking around and people have fear. What is the easiest question just to get started on day one as a strategy?
I wouldn't start out about work. I would start out with, um, you know, I don't know, maybe how was your weekend?
Hmm.
Hopefully, you know something about them other than, they're just coming to work every day. But if you don't, you say, well, you know what, you have, your family is, and then you start talking
Hmm.
about learning more about them as a person, not just an employee.
Yeah.
And without prying, without any of that. But, people love to talk about themselves.
It's
Just
true.
give them time. You just give them time and kind of pull it out of them. They're more than likely to tell you what you need to hear. And so then when you need to ask a question that's going to be an organizational question, you have built a relationship with this person,
Hmm.
and they're not going to be afraid to give you an answer, because like, well,
Hmm.
I have a relationship with Janice, so I think I can be honest and upfront with her about this.
Yeah. And it helps build that trust factor that's needed when people originally fear you. So starting out really small, like you said, like how was your weekend or something simple, and then building on that every day. And it builds that trust so that they can go and say, hey, Janice, you know what? I have this problem. I
Mhm.
need you to help me fix with whatever,
Right.
safety, project, whatever that might be. They're going to feel a lot more comfortable coming up and telling you about it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, good. Good. I have a question then when it comes to other things, such as, we want to share eventually when people are all comfortable, the vision, the mission, the values, especially if the culture is shifting. I
Hmm.
remember not knowing what the culture was to suddenly we had a vision, a mission, and values, and it feels overwhelming for employees.
Right.
So, how do we communicate or articulate that in a way that builds a positive stepping stone? Because I remember feeling nervous about it
Right.
because I'd never heard of this is early career. I'd never heard of
Okay.
these things. So it just feels like, what? There's a change, it's overwhelming. What are all these things I'm supposed to know and remember?
I know.
Right. So how does that, what would you say to that? How does that
I would
shift
say
happen?
that instead of trying to do that kind of communication in a big group, do it in a smaller group, like say the manager of the department, or the director, and have them kind of lay out what the structure is. Because usually these things come up in the strategic plan.
Yes. CEO
Right.
and yes.
So underneath of each one of this is something that they're going to do.
Mhm.
Whether it's utilize what are the mission better, or whatever it might be. And so then you kind of break it down into, okay, these are the things that are under that, and
Mhm.
this is where we fit in.
Mhm.
This is how we as our department can help them reach this particular you know thing that they want to do.
Mhm.
And I think that works better than calling in, like having like a town hall meeting and calling everybody in and putting a slide up there and saying, okay, this is our new strategic plan. And then when people hear that, they go, I'm tired.
Yep. Haven't we already done this before?
Right, right.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
always say that values are what drives this whole thing. And
Hmm.
this is what employees are looking at. They're watching you, and they're looking to see if you're living the values that you espouse. And if you don't, then that's the time a lot of people will just turn around and leave because
Yeah.
they feel it's hypocritical. So that's another thing. Leaders have to understand, you have to live these aren't just things that you put on a wall somewhere.
Agreed, 100%. They're not a checklist. They're not a checkbox. I put the poster up, I'm done. I
Right,
love that you said you need to live them because you really need to live them. Go ahead.
right. Yeah, because you only know what you see. And
Hmm.
like I say, even with values, when you're hiring people, that I have a thing called value driven hiring that I train people to do. And it's really about not just looking at a resume and trying to make a decision about the skills that, looking at the skills, not the skills aren't important, but they are. But my feeling is you can teach someone a skill, but you
Hmm.
cannot teach them a value. And the reason why I say that is values are something you decide as an
Yes.
individual to take on. No one can say, Janice, you should be more honest. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I keep going. If it's up to me to say, what, kind of sketchy on that. I think really need to take a look at that.
Hmm.
And so, again, a lot of people go in just looking at the skills. But what I say is, especially in the human services area,
Hmm.
people have to believe what you believe.
Yes. I agree. And you're right, like values, we cannot ask anybody to change their values.
Yep.
And so the values, when they match up, the values of the organization or they believe in them, we've got connection,
Right, exactly.
right?
And that's how you feel. I mean, I worked for Xerox Corporation for many, many years ago, and one of the things they really instilled in their employees that we were some of the best employees in the world. And they said that many, many times. And they treated you that way. So it
Oh,
wasn't just
nice.
saying it, it was
Yeah.
treating you like that with respect and dignity and so forth. And after a while, you believed it. Like, I'm really lucky to be here. I'm in
Hmm.
one of the best organizations in the entire world. So it can be done. It can
Hmm.
be done. But I mean, live your values. If you don't, if you're not going to live them, don't put them up there.
Yeah, because people won't follow you. You can't go and say you have to do this and then not do it yourself because they won't follow you. Yeah.
Oh,
I want to come back to something you mentioned earlier, which is when you talk to the team about the culture shift or the new values or vision or whatever, is asking the help piece. So, how can we help the organization meet these new goals or this new strategy? And the word help that you used is so key because now you're valuing me. You
right.
want my help, right? So
Exactly.
that can even bridge that fear gap by saying, oh, they need me. I'm
Hmm.
going to be part of this. And I think that when I think back about when we had a major, well, from nothing to having something, if they had indicated that to us originally, it would have been felt so much less overwhelming and so much more exciting, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you gotta if you want people to be involved in it, you've got to bring them in. You know,
Agreed.
you can't do this from like they're outside looking in. I'll give you a funny example. So many years ago, the organization I was in decided to renovate their office space. So they called everybody in and they said, "We're going to renovate it. We're not moving out. We're going to renovate it, and we want your input."
Nice.
So everyone was really thrilled, like we're going to have an opportunity to say, what color things are or how the offices are set up. The only thing that they had any input into was the color of the rugs. And then they were shut out altogether.
Mm,
We were shut completely out of it. So guess what happened? When everything was done, all you heard was complaints. Oh,
interesting.
that I don't like, because they felt deceived
Hmm.
and they decided that they weren't going to like it no matter how good it is. And I had a CEO that I was talking to about this, and he was saying, "Well, why do you think we renovated the building and everybody's not happy?" And I gave him that example. We were told
Yeah.
this, and that never happened.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating when you are given a limitation that doesn't seemingly make sense. In your
Hmm.
case, who cares what the color of the carpet is? Or if they came forward and said, this is the budget that we can afford, and so
Yeah,
this is what we picked, we need your input on everything else, may have
right.
been a completely different conversation,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
that that's what led me to believe that you have to not just say these things off the top of your head. You have to really think about them and you have to be intentional about the way you approach them.
And I think this leads into, a question I have for you is about, the gossip and the toxic workplaces. So now we have an organization such as the one you just said, where they created a boundary that caused issue.
Hmm.
But how can we kind of mitigate that? If something like that was to happen and we're the manager of our team, how can we help them through that feeling, or through gossip? Because we don't want that either as leaders. So
No.
yeah.
Well, give me the example you were using. I didn't quite catch it. You
The
said,
one with the carpet, I was thinking for the
oh, the copy.
toxic,
Okay.
because that can create gossip and
Well,
everything else.
we all make mistakes.
Hmm.
And that's one of the hardest things to do is admit as a leader you made a mistake.
Yes.
I'll tell you one thing, it is also one of the best ways to garner respect because, I think leaders sometimes think they have to be perfect.
Oh, yes, I hear that a lot.
Yeah, and they don't want to, they don't want to show their Achilles heel, so they just
Hmm.
won't do it. But I think if you come out, I mean, I've had to say this many times, I thought this was the way to go, but I see now that it isn't. And, and a little apology. And so let's see what we can do to kind of right the ship now that this has happened.
Hmm.
I think it's more ego. And I talk about culture, organizational culture transformation. When I talk about that with organizations, I say, I noticed that a lot of times when I first started this, that when I talked to a CEO about this, they would kind of furrow their brow and look very concerned. And had a chance to talk to another CEO that I knew really, really well. And I said, I can't figure this out. Why are they, when I say those words, why are they looking like that? And I kind of answered my own question. I said, oh, maybe it's because this is what they really hear. Everything I've
Hmm.
done up to this point has been wrong. You're telling me that everything I've done has been wrong. And that is so far from what it is.
Hmm.
So I start out the process with the clients I have by looking at all the good things about the organization. Before we get here, let's celebrate where you
Yes.
are right now and the great things that you've done in your organization. And then you can then kind of shift over, after you do the assessment, you kind of shift over to looking at, okay, how can we make this better? How can
Yes.
we increase engagement? What are some of the things we need to do? And I do a playbook for them, and they get to see, I with examples of things that they can do. But I say, I'm one of these. I am one of those consultants. I mean, we've all seen these consultants. They come in, they get a whole bunch of money, they give it a report, and you never see them again.
Hmm.
And don't call them because they're going to charge you. And I said, that is not how I'm going to run my business. You
Hmm.
know, if you need to reach out to me for something or you don't understand or something's not working, I'm more than happy to help you. I'm not just going to forget about you and say, "Oh yeah, I remember I had that client a long time ago," but I'm
Yeah.
I'm not going to take the call. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of reputation that I'm trying to build.
And I think it's needed because when we create those playbooks or those steps forward for people, they don't, and this could be for your own employees as leaders too, they don't always work. And we can't just check box it. Yeah, we did it. Yes, someone told us what we needed to do, or I gave the employee their action items and then walk away.
Right.
We need to know it worked. And so the employees need to be comfortable coming saying these things aren't working. Can we talk again? As well as companies coming to people like us to say, you know what, I was wondering if we could tweak this, or this piece isn't really working for us, because I think it's really, really important that everybody is open to that kind of feedback and understanding, okay, that didn't work. What can we do moving forward? Because it's about moving forward. It's not about
Exactly. Yeah.
dwelling on the past. It's about learning from the past and moving forward, right?
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, things may not work right away or they might not work at all, but you need to, if they're not working, there needs to be an adjustment made, just like what you're saying.
Hmm.
We need to adjust something because this is not working the way it should be working. So I think that's the best way, really the best way to handle it.
Yeah, and it allows for that whole perfectionism stuff to be thrown out, because I always say perfect shouldn't exist, because we're not perfect. We never will be. It's all
No,
about growth, right? Growth, development, and change. And that's where businesses and organizations and leaders can develop to move forward.
exactly. And I think
Yeah.
also, getting better training for leaders, emerging leaders, um,
Hmm.
concepts around leadership is really important too. To bring this, like one of the reasons I started this company was because I asked myself one question: why haven't things gotten better for employees?
Hmm.
I've
Good
been out here
question.
a long time, and I don't see much movement at all. So what's causing that? And then I just started doing research, and I realized that's the foundation. There's a culture. There's something going on in that culture that's
Hmm.
causing this to happen, or many things in this culture that might be happening. So how do we identify what those things are? Because
Yeah.
most of the time, people don't really want to. I had a CEO that I was working with. This was way back
Hmm.
when I was still working, and she wanted to know something about something that was going on in one of the floors in her building. It was a health center,
Hmm.
and she said, went and talked to everybody. And so when I came back, kind of talked to her about it, she said, see, that's what I mean. They're always blaming us. Well, who are they going to,
Wow, yeah.
what is it blame? There's no blame here. They've just identified things that can make your organization better. And I happened to have that. She happened to have a COO that was really forward thinking, who was able to
Mm,
implement these things.
excellent.
Um, and, and they've turned out to be a really great place to work. And they just got a $30 million grant from a foundation. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Well done.
So they're doing really, really well. And then again, that's ego. That's ego talking. They're always talking about us. They're always pointing to us. It's all about me. And it isn't. It's about
No.
things. It's about, maybe some of your traits, but it's not all you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about having that open mind as a leader, isn't it? That we welcome the feedback rather than say, oh, they're blaming us again. Just going, oh, that's interesting. And
Yes.
being a lot more curious than closed minded.
Yeah.
Because
What
that,
makes that? Wonder why they said that. What would make them say that?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
What is it that happened? What process isn't working? Whatever that question is, but being curious about it rather than me shutting it out.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, I think the toxicity in the workplace, I think a lot of that is based on the misalignment of message and action.
Hmm.
I also think that the reason why toxic leaders continue to exist is because people get promoted based on how, I won't say how tough they are, but not necessarily in how well they do the job, not how well their people skills are, what
Hmm.
people skills are like. So they don't really think about it. And then they get somebody in there and they haven't a clue what to do. So they model
Hmm.
themselves after the person above them who's toxic. Well, that person got up there, so that's how I've got to
Yes.
be. That's what I've got to do if I want to get ahead. And so you're just perpetuating this toxicity.
Yeah. Let me ask you this in order to wrap up today. Is there a key takeaway around that that you want to share with our audience that can help those leaders who are coming up not follow the toxicity of a leader that may be above them?
Well, toxicity might get you the next job, but it won't get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
And you'll end up with a reputation that you probably don't want. And people that feel like, employees will feel like they're being, there's the toxic thing going on, they'll push back. And they have very interesting ways of doing that.
Hmm.
They may leave. They may be on the job, but not really on the job, just
Hmm.
doing the bare minimum to get by.
It's
That's not what you
pre-absenteeism.
want. Right. You
Yeah.
can't run a company or an organization like that. So I
Yeah.
say stay true to yourself, and get training. Go to leadership classes. If
Yes.
as many as you can, because in the beginning I was not the best leader. And I took myself to classes and learned how to do this because it's an art and a science. The art is
Yeah.
you have to like people. The science is you have to know how to do it.
Yes. And it's ever changing. So it's a continual development on your skills, not a one and done. As you said, it's always like keep going,
Yep,
right?
absolutely
Awesome. So there was a lot of great information in there, and I hope our audience will take some of that back, especially if they have those types of organizations where culture isn't the strength. So thank you very much for being here today. If there is a way to find you online, our audience wants to reach out to you, where can they
right.
find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I have a website, WP Transformation. You can go on there. No S at the end of that. And I do a newsletter on LinkedIn every month. I kind of talk about various things that are going on in the world of work. And yeah, I, I think those are all those places you can probably find.
Yeah. Is your website a .com?
It's as a .com. Yes, I'm sorry.
.com. Excellent. No, no worries
I
at
should say
all.
that. I don't even think about the other ones.
Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your time.
All right. Well, thank you.
Of course, we thank you, our audience. We do hope you gained some valuable insights or information from today's conversation with Janice. If you did enjoy this episode, be sure to leave us a great rating. This helps us and our guests like Janice reach even more leaders with helpful stories, tips, and development. We love helping other leaders grow and thrive. If this episode got you thinking, we would love for you to consider our brand new Amplifying Leadership Circle community. Information is in the show summary on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership is better when we do it together. So for more information about all of our Amplifying Leadership services, please visit us anytime at amplifyingleadership.ca, a division of Twin Life Coaching and Business Services. Until next time, remember, leadership matters.